Melanated family, back for another week. Thank you, everybody, for tuning into a brand new episode of the Melanated Combo podcast. Me and my sister Sonia. This is the show for the week where we discuss the news, family. We keep telling you, we're going to tell you what's going on with the kids. We're going to tell you what's going on with the white supremacists. We're going to tell you when we doing stuff wrong. But the point of this show that we typically do on Thursday, this is the Thursday, Friday show for the last 2 weeks, but life be lifing, you know what I mean? Me and my sister Sonia have stuff going on, but we're going to bring you the show every week, though.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean? We're going to be here every week, though. So I'm happy to be back for another week. Please hit the like button, subscribe button. If you're listening to the show on one of the digital platforms, continue to subscribe and comment. All of those things are greatly appreciated. Subscribe to the Melanated Combo on YouTube. Facebook is growing too. Everybody who watches it on Facebook, some people ask me why I put my show on Facebook. Well, there's a billion some odd people on Facebook. All social media platforms are very popular. It's just how you play stuff, where you play stuff. And I have a lot of family and friends on there. You know what I mean? So I want to try my best to service everybody. So if you watch it on Facebook, please share the video, like the video. So let's get everything started. Now, this week, we're going to talk about a few different news stories affecting our people. But then this is Women's History Month. Am I saying it right, Sonia?
Yes.
Women's History Month. So we're going to flip that thing and it's going to be Black Women's History Month. You see what I'm saying? So we're going to hijack 2 months, like in a row.
Yes.
So just like last month, me and Sonia talked about different people from our history. This month, we're going to do the same thing, but just with women. You feel me? So let's get it going, man. The first news story that I want to talk about real quick. Stephen A. Smith, commentator, journalist, like great at his job, right? He's over the years, he's said a lot of things that have been questionable to me, you know, like being on a platform that big and putting yourself in a position where you're reprimanding athletes and speaking about them in a certain way. He has a great perspective. He's put in a lot of work. I'm never going to take that from him. Right. But sometimes I don't know where he stands when it comes to just truly being someone trying to liberate our people. But what I have to say is this past week when Ja Morant, a young NBA player for the Memphis Grizzlies, he got into some trouble. Like he's a 23-year-old black man who is trying to find his place in this society, influenced by hip hop and a lot of the stuff that young black men are influenced by. He showed a gun in the club, and which was wrong, which was stupid, which he's about to sign like $190 million deal or something like that.
Right.
So things like that can possibly affect how he's trying to build wealth for his family. So being critical of that is understandable, but sometimes they blanket that and they say, well, hey, black men are acting a certain way, or they put that on all of us, opposed to it being like a personal individual's behavior. So Stephen A. Smith came out and defended Ja Morant and said, hey, white folks, he said this directly. That's why I'm talking about it, because he doesn't really speak to white people directly a lot. A lot of times he's reprimanding us directly, opposed to speaking to our oppressor. So he took the time this show to speak to white folks and tell them not to lump all black people in together. He went on to mention that there's a lot of black athletes, which is true, that do right by their money, do right by their family, don't get no bullshit. You see what I'm saying? So I'm happy that he spoke that way, and he's done it before in different avenues. I'm not gonna say he just be completely going out there on us, but it's good to see that, Sonia. And to me, that's like on code behavior, to know how to critique someone but still let people know this the side I'm on. You know what I mean?
Yeah. What I like about his stance and his statement in particular about making this point of this is what we're not going to do. I think because his platform is so not just us, and so many folks that are not us are watching, they know how to manipulate situations to spin stories and narratives in a direction that begins to be the narrative for all Black folks. And so that's one, the importance of it. The second thing that came to mind is he's 23, and like, what mistake, I always ask people, what mistakes did you make when you were 23? Because I know I made some, right? So what did those mistakes of 23-year-old you do for you? And could they potentially have been way worse than brandishing a gun? Because at the
Mhm,
end of the day, yeah, dumb move, but he didn't kill anybody, and
mhm,
no crime was committed. Also, the third thing that came to mind is I want to know the birth and circumstance of this young man. Like,
mm,
other than, and after I read the article, I then went to try to Google and get more information and background on the young John Morant. And other than him being from South Carolina,
mhm,
two-parent home, I didn't find a lot. So he's
mhm,
not been in trouble. I don't know a lot about the small town that he's from in South Carolina,
mm.
but I can't imagine being from a state like South Carolina, which has it's part of the South contemporarily, right?
Mhm.
And it has a larger Black population than most other states. And so we have to take some of those things into consideration, like why would a young person of 23 decide, one, that I need to carry a gun, two, that I think is flashy or like okay behavior to flash it?
Mhm.
And so we want to get to the root of that. But he quickly apologized, which I also appreciate. And so where do we as a society, one, say, okay, we want to give grace to our young people because they're young and they make mistakes.
Yeah,
When do we
definitely.
give them grace? And this could have been flipped in so many other ways.
And I'm always online watching the reaction of the people and
Yeah,
fans and just people, right? So people was giving him a hard time because he did come from a two-parent home. So people are saying, you come from a good two-parent home. Why are you flashing a gun
right.
like this? He want to be a thug. He listened to hip hop. Some of these things may be true. I do think hip hop influenced our youth, but we don't know the logistics behind his
Yeah,
household. Just because he had two parents, we don't know where his pops is from. We don't know what type of element he was around
right.
as a young person. You see what I'm saying? So I'm always giving our young men grace because, and I'm seeing a lot of people comment online who've never had $10,000, right?
Right.
So if you give a person $60 million at 21 and tell them go live their life, who knows what trouble or incidents they may find themselves in. And his pops, people giving his pops a hard time because his pops is a cool looking younger father who
Right.
seems like he kicks it with his son a little bit and be around his son in social environments. They both wearing similar clothes, right? And
Right.
everybody's saying, well, you need to be a daddy to your son and stop your son from brandishing weapons. That's why I'm happy
Yeah.
Stephen A. Smith said that, because like you said, the world listens to his platform, and we don't want to create those kind of narratives because his father is one of the reasons why he's in the position he's in now.
Yeah.
See, and his father, like I said on my show I did on Tuesday, his father is first generation too, right? So you guys are getting all this money for the first time. So we need to be aware of how this may look. A lot of us have these ideals about what we would do with money when we got it, but we never end up getting it. Excuse
Right.
me. What if one day $60 million was dropped in your lap? You
Right.
may say, give me that, give me that. I want two of those, right? If you never had
Absolutely.
money. So we have to give our young Black men grace. I'm happy Stephen A. Smith said this. I think ultimately this young man's going to be okay. He didn't shoot nobody. He had that
Yeah.
gun incident. He had another incident where he was driving off. He had a problem with a player from a different team. He was
Yeah.
driving off in his car. They put the beam of the gun on the guy. So to me, these are, people may see these as very, very large incidences. I don't think as much. I think this is a part of being young in America because, like
Yeah.
we spoke about before, our young men at times aren't allowed the opportunity to be youth, like to
Right.
to to experience these growing pains, as we'll talk about later with other
Absolutely.
stories. A lot of people in society, when we 14, 15, 13, they view us as grown men.
Grown
And
folk.
you see what I'm saying? And
You
and
know
they're
better.
holding our feet to the fire like we're adults, but a 23-year-old man still doesn't have a fully developed brain,
Yeah.
right? So
This
that's
is the
important.
reality. The reality in regards to one, development for males, not just Black males, but it's even a little, worse for Black males when we're talking about expectations of maturity. Um, just the psychology world would say that males in particular have a maturation rate that is slower than that of females,
Mhm.
right? So that's one part of it. And I, as a black mother of 6 black boys, sometimes I say to myself, yeah, and but because when do we say that we raise them with,
Mm.
this, and recognizing, because as an educator and someone who studied psychology to a at the lower level degree, I still want to give them enough grace to experience making dumb mistakes and learning from them,
Mhm.
right? And
Mhm.
so I agree. I don't think that this is a life altering end all be all situation for this young man. Um, I just, like I said, I don't like when the narrative is spinned and you don't have facts to say. Like, part of the article wanted to allude to him being gang involved, and I'm just like, hold on, go back to his, childhood. Do we have facts? Because if you don't have
Mhm.
facts, you can feel any old kind of way about a young black boy coming
Mhm.
from any black enclave around this country, and you can say, "Oh, it looks like you don't know.
Yep.
You
Yep.
don't know the shoes that he's had to walk and the journey that he's had to get here."
Mhm.
And one thing that I always think about, I think about my oldest son. He's 28 years old, and I can remember as a child, um, he would be like, "It's dangerous in these streets, mom. And I know you doing your best to protect us and shield us from certain things and rearing us properly, but we can't control what the next person is doing."
Mhm.
And so oftentimes I've found pocket knives in my house that I ain't never gave no kid of mine, right? I have found these things. I found brass knuckles one time. I was like, "You need me to wear these and beat you up?" But it's one of those things when we have to constantly be having conversations with our young people,
Mm.
our young black boys in particular, which there's a different threat on their back than that
Mhm.
of black girls. I think that it's an equal threat that both experience, but it's a different threat. Um,
Definitely.
they'll gun down in public a black boy,
Mhm.
in private they'll kill a black girl, right? So
Mhm.
there are different targets, and I just think that our young black men don't have, are not afforded the maturity to analyze situations and say, do I really need a gun?
Do I really need a gun? Yes, because and I have to and I personally feel are the hip hop cultural norms in the subject matter, in the frequency in the music.
Yeah,
This is affecting our babies.
absolutely.
Whether and this is what I'm learning, whether you a kid who grew up in the inner city with one parent or you a kid who got two parents in the suburbs,
Right,
if you black and you listen to this music, you may
right,
feel a unwarranted commonality with the individual making the music. You
right.
see what I'm saying? So that's
Absolutely.
something that I'm learning. But at the end of the day, we have to be weary of how our young men are the narrative behind what they do because Skip Bayless is he made a joke about I heard he was with the Crips or something. Look,
Right.
that's not funny,
It's not
man.
funny.
That's not funny because of how much we're criminalized, because of how this system views us. And we got to keep it real. Everybody, if you haven't done this already, I read a book called $40 Million Slave,
Mhm.
$40 Million Slaves like 5 or 6 years ago. Brilliantly structured book about
Right.
black athletes and how they're marketed and how we've changed the game and how
Absolutely.
sometimes all you got to do is look in the stands. I remember as a young person looking in the Kings Arena at home, right? But it
Mhm.
was weird to me. I was like, I looked on the court and it was 20 people on 10 people on the court, 8 black, sometimes all 10 black, right? It's 5 on 5, but it's all black men. And I
Right.
looked in the audience, I'm like, it's all white folks in the audience. And as a kid, Sonia, I'm looking thinking, where are all them white folks from? Because in
Right.
my neighborhood, it's all us. See, so my limited scope of the city I live in, but we got to realize, like sometimes athletic competition, it's like a circus to certain people.
Yeah.
Meaning,
Yeah.
they watch you and wear your jersey, but you bet not knock on a door.
Right.
And this is
Still.
the reality.
And they
Still,
might be the most popular athlete,
yeah,
and still you're not welcome to knock at my door.
yeah,
And there's another layer to who we are as a collective black people as well. There is like for real, we have to take into consideration, like I use my family for example. My husband and I managed to make it out the respective hoods that we came from. I'm a Oakland chick. I know I can tell you what neighborhoods not to go in, what not to, do back in my day, right? It's a totally different landscape today. My
Mhm.
husband grew up in San Francisco,
Mhm.
Sunnydale, Hunters, Point, all of the areas, right? So we worked really hard to put our coins together and remove our children from certain environments. But on the weekends and on the holidays and on during summertime, we might send our kids to be with family who are still in those hoods,
Mm.
right? And so I can remember my kids, they would always come home and be like, yeah, we ain't built for that. know? And the
Send me
reality,
home, huh?
right? Bring me home. Or if they were there long enough, like for a week or multiple weeks at a time, and they would come home, I would be like, there was a little change, or something was off, because the stance that they took was, I gotta stand in a defensive manner so that
Mm.
nobody will mess with me. Like,
Mm.
my sons went and visited an aunt who stayed in Sunnydale projects for 2 weeks while I was working out of town, and my husband was working, so we needed to have them somewhere. She volunteered, and it didn't dawn on me, this is the hood. It just, I was like, they young, she gonna be watching. And to my dismay, she was still like my mama was, because she's older than me. And she was like, my mom was like, when the street lights come home, you come in the house, and at by noon, if you ain't up and showered and got your teeth brushed and your face washed, get out the door and go play. Like, we don't play video games, we don't do the indoor. She was sending them out into, and I was like, oh, okay, I get it. So I understand how they came home, and the stance was different. So even though parents work really hard to remove their children from environments that they may have grown up in, we are still a what do they say, a generation removed, or a 8 degrees of separation removed from these circumstances that can shape us dramatically.
Mhm.
Remember, Trayvon Martin walking through his dad's neighborhood was a different neighborhood than what his mom lived in.
Mhm.
So we have to code switch. We have to learn how to get along in situations and circumstances that we are thrown into. And
Mhm.
it's just not fair sometimes that our kids have those dual roles, and have to navigate those worlds without a lot of guidance behind it. They're put in those situations, and they got to make the decision on the fly.
Yeah, and you said the right thing without the guidance behind it, because you speaking about your sons going to Sunnydale Project or your kids going to Sunnydale Project, that remind me of my child who is quote unquote suburban kid, go to private school, but we thought it was necessary. We was like, okay, we have to let you go to neighborhoods where we were raised, to
Yes.
go environments that we were raised in, simply so you can get used to it, simply so you can. I don't want you to view a hood black person, quote unquote, as your enemy or
Right.
somebody that you're better than. I need you to be around these individuals so you can know we all the same. You see what I'm saying?
Absolutely.
And I think for my son, it worked perfectly, where he was able to be around his cousins and people in his family, and we have a business in Oak Parks, but he walks around freely, right? This is
Absolutely.
an accomplishment to me, because I don't want you to be scared of your people. You see, so you need to be aware of how we conduct ourselves as black people, because I think sometimes, Tony, if we shelter off our kids and
Yes.
put them in suburban areas that and they never have any hood experience, they're gonna treat the hood how a white kid treats the hood.
Yes.
Get me out of here, mommy. Where am I? Lock the door. All this
Mhm,
bullshit. You know what I mean? So you
mhm.
got to put them in the environment, because then they'll quickly learn, okay, everybody's not a target.
Right.
The posture, like you was mentioning, the posture of the individuals in this community may be a little bit different, but you stand up for yourself, you have regular conversations, you'll see there's more in common than you have apart. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
that's important. So shout out to the brother John Morant. I'm, like I said on my Tuesday show, I'm sure he'll make it through this. He's on his
Yeah.
way to being like a Hall of Fame type player.
Yeah.
Thank you, Stephen A. Smith, for being on Code. Now, I
Mhm.
know it's a hard job being in those environments where maybe a large part of your audience don't look like us, but that don't mean you have to be all off code. There's a strategic way you can approach speaking about issues that have to do with us. And sometimes it seems like they sick the black analysts on us
On
opposed to
us.
letting a white man say it. See,
Right.
so that type of strategy I'm not with, but shout out to those brothers. Moving on to the next story. And everybody, please hit the like button, share
Yeah.
button. This your brother Harrison, the Melanated Convo podcast with my sister Sonia, the owner and curator of Ascribe Educational Consulting. You feel me? If your business ain't being nice to the black folks, if your business have several blind spots like most corporations do, unfortunately, my sister Sonia can help you out. You feel me? So let's get on to the next story. Now, next story that I want to read to everybody. This was important because this happens a lot, Sonia. So Kyle Rittenhouse was invited to speak. Let me see here. Hold on one second. So Rittenhouse will be a featured guest speaker at the gun event, which is scheduled at the East Las Vegas Library. So at least 300 people are expected to attend an event to earn carrying a concealed weapon or CCW certifications in Nevada.
Right.
Founder of Vegas CCW said that Rittenhouse is a living example who could provide insight in concealed carry students. Now, Sonia, we've seen this with
Woo!
George Zimmerman. We've seen this with several white supremacists. This is what he is. We've seen this situation where they end up killing people in the name of white supremacy. Because Kyle Rittenhouse, people tried to throw him a lob when I was talking about the story before. So you're like, hey, he didn't kill nobody black. He killed white people too. Well, no,
Right.
he
No.
killing people in the name of protecting white supremacy. If you
Right.
white, just so you know, everybody, if you white at a Black Lives Matter protest, you fair game.
You a target
You a
too.
you a nigger lover.
Yeah.
You a nigger lover, so they're gonna give it to you too. See, but the problem is, and the reason why we keep seeing these vigilantes is because they get rewarded in different ways. So they got this, they got this dude talking at a concealed weapons conference. Like Sonia, when you see something like this, what do you make of it?
Oh my goodness. This is like the epitome of um we make excuses for. We are not valuing life. We are we are monetizing and valuing the destruction of humanity over that of you. I mean, I can go on. You are further causing harm and trauma and oppression to the people who he killed, right?
Mm-hmm.
I remember this case so vividly because this was during the time that I was very active in BLM, and there would be regular, like when I tell you, we had, I told you, shared before that we had security force in our mindset, where
Mm-hmm.
we had folks who were always watching, and who were the regular folks that showed up, and who was out of place, and who potentially was just there to cause harm. We would regularly have Proud Boys show up at our events, stand across the street. They never were emboldened enough to come in our faces, but there were times when individuals within our group were
Mm-hmm.
isolated and individually attacked. And so
Mm-hmm.
when I think about Kyle, and I just remember when they read the verdict and he had those fake ass tears, I was
Mm-hmm.
so disheartened by one this little boy,
Mm-hmm.
because again, when we talk about the maturity of and who should have a gun in their hand, and we know that we see videos all the time with people who won't say out loud that they're white supremacists, but because they are Christian and believe in gun toting, they are
Mm-hmm.
training their babies as young as 3, 4, and 5 to shoot guns. And so this is a culture we have to really address, because one, we can be like, the Panthers, and be like, okay, well, we'll give every black person a gun. At the end of
Mm-hmm.
the day, what is that going to do for us? We're
Yeah.
still outnumbered, even though we are the global majority in this country, we're not. And so
Yes.
if at the end of the day, when we're talking about community warfare, yes, certain communities around this country could potentially protect themselves, but the majority can't. And that leaves us all exposed to who are we going to fight. And I will say, being having one parent who's from the country, a good old Southern boy from Texas is my daddy.
Mhm.
I grew up with guns. I've shot shotguns since probably age 5 or 6. But I've shot shotguns because we have acreage of land where we go shooting hogs and
Mhm.
deer, and my
Part of the
father
culture.
grew up on the land and knew how to use the land to provide for his family, and he wanted to
Mhm.
pass down that tradition. It wasn't a like I can remember summers going and visiting in Texas, and he specifically tell us that's Mr. Jones's property. Don't touch his fence. Don't walk up to his gate because he will shoot a nigga, and he knows that he can. Like, for
Mhm.
real, that was the warning. When my boys got old enough to go visit my father during the summertime, he told them this. He gave them the same warning. And I had a nephew who he's one of those ones. I'm gonna touch the stove to see if it's really hot. And Mr. Jones came on his front porch with his shotgun and cocked that sucker in the air and shot as a warning. Look at here,
Mhm.
little nigga boy, don't come by my fence again. And so we
Come
have
on
to
now.
know what we are dealing with when we're talking about white supremacy, when we're
Mhm.
talking about gun violence in this country, and when we're talking about the usage of guns to protect white supremacy.
Yes, and we're talking about Kyle Rittenhouse. So he is set to appear at the Guns in the Library event on May
The library
13th.
at that.
Come on now. According
where
to
in
news
certain
report,
states where in certain states they're wiping the library shelves of books that have anything to do with black lives and black history and black genius
not a
that
coincidence. Not a
not a
coincidence.
coincidence.
And we got to understand, and people didn't realize this. He showed up to a Black Lives Matter event. Yeah, he killed 2 Black Lives Matters protesters in Kenosha, Wisconsin in 2020. He's a MAGA supporter. He fatally shot 36-year-old Joseph Rosenbaum. He shot 26-year-old Anthony Huber with the AR-15. They were the the protest was about the killing of a black man.
Right.
Whenever that's the case, white vigilantes show up to think they have to protect white
Yes.
businesses. And if you white, but you on the side of the Negro, we gonna get you too.
Yeah.
And that's all that we've seen here because he traveled for miles and miles to participate in this insurrection. You see what I'm saying? So we need to be aware of what's going on. And all he had to do, so look, all he had to do was cry.
Right.
I'm looking at a picture right now of his ass just crying.
Yes.
All he had to do was cry, and white
Yes.
jurors seeing them white tears. Go home, white. Go
Yeah.
home, nephew. Go
Yeah.
home, son. Go home, cousin. You see what I'm saying? Because
Yeah.
they're looking at him as one of their family members.
Yeah.
So we need to be aware of how deep this shit go, man. Because a lot of times, thinking about other stories that we're gonna talk about today, a lot of times we as black folks will come out and say, "Hey, this was wrong. We feel it was wrong. We're giving you guys certain details to add to the story," and
Yeah.
then the government comes out and say they was wrong. The government come out and say, "Okay, you guys are right. This police department was working against what we believe in, or they was working on their own, whatever the case may be." But we need to be aware of this shit and not be always so reactionary. I'm thinking
Yeah.
about like the COVID situation, and I was seeing reports where they were saying, you know what, the vaccine, the booster, maybe we made some mistakes.
Right.
Maybe it wasn't what we thought it was, but
Right.
when you get online and be like, "Hey, this is bullshit. Hey, Fauci could be lying." They hit you with your conspiracy theorists. They
Yeah.
they put you in this group. Oh, you with the woke crowd. See, I don't like this narrative that if I question everything I see from this white society, that if we remove race and say I'm in a relationship with the American government, if this my woman or my man,
Right.
this has been extremely abusive.
Mm-hmm.
Lie to me all the time. You abuse
Mm-hmm.
me all the time. So when you say some shit, I'm gonna be like, well, you know what? That could be a lie too. To me, this is all logical, and I hate that we're so reactionary and we're so quick to go along with what we've been told, opposed to critically thinking about things and being okay with saying, yeah, I may be an outlier. I
Right.
may not feel the way you guys feel about this particular issue. Like, we have to have pride in who we are. Every incident that happens with us in America isn't about race, but a lot of it is, you guys.
Yeah.
A lot
A
of
lot.
it is. So be aware of that. Be okay with speaking truth to that. Don't come to
Yeah.
me later. Everybody be coming to me later like you was kind of right about that, Harris. Stop, nigga. I said it 9 months ago. When I
Right.
said it, I was crazy, and you
Right.
DMing me about calming it down and aren't you scared for your son? Scared? Do we have time to be scared?
No.
So
No. Not at all. What my hope is in this case, though, is Las Vegas is a little bit more progressive than Reno. We know that Nevada as a whole is not they're very conservative,
Mhm,
but the hope is enough folks hear that this is happening. And this is May, and we're in March, and we can galvanize some energy around
mhm,
either stopping this event from happening,
mhm,
stopping his participation and conversation to a community who potentially would be indoctrinating
mhm,
young white boys to do the same thing that he did, right?
mhm, mhm.
It's that I give you permission to do this because it worked out. I got lucky and it worked out for me, kind of thing.
Yep.
And we don't know, we can't predict what the outcome would be. But
Mhm,
it is my hope that enough folks who are on the ground in the field doing this work, fighting white supremacy, I'm going to send this article in particular to my folks at Color of Change. I will be sending it
mm,
out to my folks at the NAACP. I will be sending it out to other organizations who mobilize against events like this. And
mm.
so, even if it's a matter of Black Lives Matter showing up to say, look at here, little boy, fool us once, but you're not going to be able to pull this kind of thing off again. And words are powerful, more to me, more powerful than guns, right?
Mhm,
Because
mm,
you got to have good aim to actually take somebody out. Like, we think about how many bullets are shot at someone and how many land. You got to be a good marksman
mhm,
to always have a good shot. And he got, I don't want to say lucky in the sense that he killed two people, but he hit two targets that
mhm,
ultimately led to their death. And
mhm.
so we have to be very, very, very cognizant of this. Words are powerful, and you are bringing this person who is perpetuating white supremacy, which is hate, to speak about the right to carry a gun. And look
Yeah.
how it turned. Basically, let me tell my story and look how it turned out for me.
Yeah.
The
He's
laws are
being
different
rewarded.
state by state. And
Yep.
so what happened in Wisconsin could be a very different outcome in a state like Nevada or
Mhm.
California or New York, or yeah, we can go on, but
And he's being rewarded for
basically,
shooting people at a Black Lives Matter protest. I
yes,
don't know, in our society, I've seen a lot of tragic, violent incidents happen with black and white people, all races of
right.
people. I've never seen a black man kill somebody and gun advocates reward him, give him
Like
praise.
where the NRA at, right?
Come on now, the NRA is all with it until a nigga show
And
up at the
so we
Capitol with a
show up with
gun.
guns.
We
Yes,
show up at the Capitol with a gun. Like, wait, whoa. Let's go ahead and change that law. We was just playing.
right.
We was
So
just
you think
playing.
about the history of right here in California. The Black
Yeah,
Panthers started right here in
they
California.
showed
The
up. Yeah,
NRA was extremely vocal and said, we can't have these black folks showing up
we
where,
made a mistake. That law's true, but it ain't
but
for the Negroes.
right,
You know what I
right.
mean? So we need to, like you said, that's the part of agitation that works. Like
Yeah.
protesting, marching. I've come to realize I'm always changing my perspective based
Yeah.
on new information. You know what I mean? That's a part of the struggle.
Yes,
There's several different pieces to us getting our liberation. A piece of
absolutely.
it is agitation. I
Yes.
got this sign in your face. The news gonna come. I need to tell everybody this shit is happening because y'all don't be believing us.
Right.
Y'all don't think it's still taking place, even though it's 50 something, 60 something years later than we was marching in our prime. You know what I mean? And President Joe Biden is at the
The
he
Edmund
marching
Pettus Bridge
he's
celebrating the
marching with everybody on the bridge with his senile ass. I'm like, okay,
right. Right.
whatever. But that level of agitation is definitely necessary. So we need to be aware of what these people are doing to us. And really, like the the hunt and gatherer mentality when it comes to black bodies,
Yes.
right? George
Yes.
Zimmerman, he was selling the gun, selling Skittles bags. Like this is, we got to get on code so we
Yes.
can address these things properly, family. So, last story before we get to, because this is Women's Month. What is it? No, I'm sorry.
Women's History Month.
Women's History Month, and
Yeah.
me and my sister Sonia is going to talk about some women from our history before we end the show. You feel me?
Yeah.
So we're going to get to that in a minute. So before we get there, the Department of Justice has been doing a lot of digging into the Louisville Police Department and different police departments around that sector based on what happened to Breonna Taylor, right? So a Louisville Metro police officer unleashed his police dog on a 14-year-old black boy who was spotted lying on the ground, now leading to several injuries, hospitalization, according to the report published on Wednesday by the Department of Justice. The findings are part of the DOJ's broader 2-year investigation into the Louisville Metro Police Department and the Louisville/Jefferson County Metro government that was launched after Breonna Taylor's killing. Now, in this situation, the police dog incident occurred during a search warrant for a home invasion suspect, according to the Department of Justice, which reviewed a video of the encounter. The date of the incident and name of the officer were not disclosed. But here's the thing, Sonia. He's sick. This officer had his dog, sticked his dog on the 14-year-old. Every time something like this happened, we hearing all these stories about who they were after. Oh,
Right.
it was supposed to be a drug bust.
Right.
Oh, it was it's always some different incident that they're justify using to go into our communities. And we have a thing in black society about dogs. Like I know a lot of older black people who will kick the shit out of they don't like any level, any breed of a dog.
No.
And we need to realize a lot of our trauma and how we react to America is based on our history. If
Yes.
you were 16 in the 60s, and every time you tried to uprise and protest, a dog was sicked on your ass, you may not like dogs to this day because look
Right.
at the brutality that was used against us. So that was 50, 60 years ago. Sonia, we still seeing dogs being treating kids, brutalizing kids to this day.
Yeah. And it's so unfortunate because what the officer was caught saying, it really and truly just ticked me off to no end, because I have a problem when, like, I value life. And I've never been a dog owner, and I can say now, as my children have matured, my older kids will be like, let's get a dog. And I'll be like, boy, I can barely take care of y'all. We're not taking care of a dog, right? And I never grew up in a household with a dog. But my 22-year-old has a dog as a therapy animal. And we love this dog, this big old Zeus. We love Zeus, right? My nephews called themselves buying some dogs and then starting to breed them. And we were falling in love with all of these little puppies that were being born. One of my other nephews, his girlfriend has the cutest little, I don't even know what kind of dog it is, but Oreo walks around this house, like a little privileged child getting what he wants. But I can remember in my neighborhood growing up in Oakland, if a dog was out on the loose, you ran. And it was a threat. I can remember my friends and I were being chased by a pit bull one time, and I was on the top of somebody's car for at least an hour because this dog was not going away. And the only reason that we were able to get off that car was because an older kid in the neighborhood, just like you said, came by and literally kicked that dog so hard that it ran home, crying. And so in this instance, we have to look at the history, but we also have to look at how we've allowed law enforcement to quantify and qualify dogs and horses to be teamed officers, right? Protecting property, because the officer says something along the line of stop fighting the dog back. And I'm like,
yes.
So you're and that's classic verbiage when it comes to that notion of black bodies are always resisting. Like,
Mm-hmm.
so now you're telling me this dog is attacking me, and you now want to tell me not to, my body's not supposed to have that intuition, that reflex of not defending itself. Like,
Mm-hmm.
we instinctively go into cradle position when we're being beat up. I think about Tyree Nichols being literally gang banged, kicked by all those officers a couple of months ago.
Mm-hmm.
We go into that defense mechanism where we call out and we try to protect. But you're trying to tell me trying to protect myself is fighting back?
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes that's the only way that we can get the notion that I don't want you. This is hurt. This hurts. This is hard.
Mm-hmm.
And I need you to stop. But that's classic manipulation and gaslighting and changing the narrative when you say to somebody, oh, what you're really doing is wrong and stop fighting my dog. I'm
Yeah.
just,
And it's weird because hearing everything you just said, so now I'm thinking, damn, epigenetics, man. Like
yes.
what our family has been through. Because I'm thinking most of the people around me when I was a kid didn't use a dog as a pet per
No.
se. It was in the backyard.
Right.
Some shit pop off, dog gonna bark first. I can get my thing. You see what I'm saying? Giving me a little time to get
Mhm.
ready.
Mhm.
The backyard was horrible looking. That
Right.
that little glass to the little screen to the backyard was hella had dirt on it. You was
Right.
scared of the dog in the backyard. The dog was like, I want to come in the house. So
Yeah.
the dog is barking and you're scared of him and it's kids. We ran from dogs. And I'm
Yeah.
thinking something inside of us was saying, something in me saying this dog used to attack me.
Yes.
This dog went and when we was the 40s and 50s and 30s, there wasn't a whole bunch of black folks with dogs.
No.
It
No.
it it, it wasn't. So we got to look at our history sometime and how things come to be. And this is a 14-year-old baby. We keep saying this. We were just talking about John Morant, who's
Right.
23. In this country, my son's 15. He's 5'10, 15. People be like, oh no, they think he a man.
Right.
I'm like, damn, this is a real thing.
It's
Family, our
an
black
epidemic.
children aren't allowed to grow
No.
in this society. Society treats them as their grown men immediately, and all young people make mistakes. You see what I'm
Yeah.
saying? So this
Yeah.
Louisville Police Department, I'm tired of. We keep getting information about different police departments that are
Yeah.
corrupt. When is our legal system in this country, the politicians in this country, we need to figure out this race problem. We have a lot of issues in America.
Yeah.
There's a lot of things going on with a lot of different groups of people. You know what I mean? I'm not just saying we are the only ones in this
No.
country struggling with different things. A lot of different groups of people are. But this racism shit, it's a hankering on us because
Absolutely.
even with everything we've been through, do you know when I see somebody white, I don't think nothing? I
Right.
don't think you're Kyle Rittenhouse. I don't
Right.
think you're George Zimmerman. I don't know. It's funny. I'm like, sometimes I'll be thinking like, damn, I don't know why not.
Right.
Sometimes that's our problem because we on some African love shit. But I'm seeing individuals as individuals. I'm
Individuals.
not grouping you
Right.
ever.
But
It's just not in our nature.
that's the thing. The way they see us, they group us as a collective. So
Yes.
they've created their stereotype, they've created the norms, they've created what the expectations are, they've created the limitations so that the expectations can be low. And then they say the whole group, here's the blanket, y'all all alike.
Mm-hmm.
And you look alike too.
Mm-hmm.
We see people as individuals because we know that individually we can have conversations with people and quantify who you are based on who you are, not based on
Mm-hmm.
where you came from.
Mm-hmm.
And so that is a huge difference culturally that it's like a double-edged sword though, right? Because this is something, when we speak of epigenetics, this is also an epigenetic thing that has been transferred from generation to generation, from continent to continent, because African culture sees people as humans.
Yep.
Right? And so because that is still part of our psyche and DNA,
Mm-hmm.
I often question the the dominant gene that we have, and how we've been able to survive all these years when everything literally imaginable has been designed to take us out. And
Mm-hmm.
so part of me is like, damn, this gene that we got is so dominant and so strong, and we should be thankful for it. But it's like, damn, this gene is so strong that the target continues to get stronger
Blessing
and
and a
stronger.
curse. Blessing and a curse.
Yeah,
So I hope it, I personally think, Sonia, if we want to see a change in police conduct in inner city communities, it's going to have to be like a complete overhaul
completely,
of the system, a
completely.
complete different framing of how you hire people. Because I'm not stupid. I understand some cops went into it like, I'm going to change the world,
Yes,
I'm going to save communities, right?
yes,
But then you get into it and you see it's corrupt. You get into it and you have a bad experience and now you're jaded. But some of y'all just don't like us to begin with.
to
And they
begin with.
send you to our communities to police us. And this is one of the worst possible things you can do. So, using my platform, I'm never gonna let you guys off the hook
No,
until the shit's done, until it's over.
right.
We'll keep talking about it. You see what I'm saying?
Uh,
So we need to continue to bring light to this. RIP to the sister Breonna Taylor, how she died, and
yes,
sometimes these are martyrs. Like these
yes,
individuals have things happen to them, so we can shine a light on it. And I didn't think that was as important as I do now, some
yeah.
years back. But now I realize we're so forgotten, we're so unthought about that sometimes you gotta take a one incident and highlight it to make the world stop for a minute and say this is important. You feel me? So,
And
RP
before,
to
let
that
me just
sister.
also say,
Yes, go ahead,
this
sister.
is the month that Breonna Taylor was actually murdered. So,
All right.
it's sometimes things happen, and you look like, damn, they ain't learned their lesson, because that was in 2020 when on March 13th when Breonna Taylor was murdered, and
Mhm.
then y'all are under investigation on a national level, a federal level, coming in to investigate what your department is doing, and the DOJ has findings that you have unlawful practices because of the Breonna Taylor case. And then 3 years later, in the same month, you have an unlawful release of a police dog onto a teenager. I
Mhm.
don't think that these are coincidences, but we have to be very mindful of the repetitiveness
Mhm.
when these things are happening. So I'm hoping, again, like when we talk about be proactive, what are you going to do about it?
Mhm.
Like we need to be having our watchful eye on the DOJ who's watching this particular police department,
Yep.
and challenge them to go into other departments around this country, because
Mhm.
just like you said, there has to be at some point an overhaul that looks very different for black folks to be able to trust and say, y'all gonna protect and serve us,
Mhm.
because this is what the expectation is. And just going also back to the history of the dog. Remember, during slave time, if you escaped, they sick dogs on us.
Come on now. Ooh, come on now. So why am I 12
Right,
running from a dog like
right,
it's gonna kill me?
right,
Well, in the nature of some dogs, I'm learning because I have 3 dogs now. He's wanna play. Some
right.
dogs just want to play. Some dogs is using it as exercise. My ancestors don't know that though.
No,
They saying, boy, you better run.
right.
You better get up your dog. So this is Women's History Month, everybody. I'm be honest. I'm always transparent. I did not know this.
Yeah,
I did not know that March was Women's History Month. So what me and Sonia gonna do is we gonna make it 2 Black History Months. We just gonna put them together. You feel me? So March, this whole month, we gonna talk about different women from our struggle. So the first
yeah,
woman I want to talk about, because last month for Black History Month, I got these dolls from Target. Me and Sonia talked about it before. These 2 women that we're going to speak about today. The first woman that I want to speak about, and I explained to my granddaughters yesterday, and you know, sometimes I'm just happy I know certain things so I
yeah,
can explain to them. So, first lady we're going to talk about is Ida B. Wells, right? And Sonia will elaborate on this, but from my research of the sister, this is when things were happening to us, like before TV, like
yeah,
before you could cut on the news and watch a travesty happen to somebody black. Ida B. Wells was a journalist.
yeah.
She was writing about slavery. She was writing about lynching. And everybody listening to me, This was dangerous, family. You put a instant mark on your back if you spoke like this. So she spoke about everything that was happening to us.
Yeah.
She saw to it to document it, working close with the NAACP, working close with all of the revolutionary thinkers of the time.
Yeah.
But these are women who are great, but this was dangerous territory to be this rebellious. And she's a young, beautiful woman who took the stance of, I'm gonna die about this if I have to.
Absolutely.
I'm gonna talk to my people about the lynchings. I'm gonna be graphic because she told the stories about the lynchings and what was going on, but she made sure she gave you graphic information so you can see how brutal it was. See, and she was willing to go to whatever end to make sure our people knew what was going on, Sonia. So that's important to me.
Absolutely. Ida is like, I mean, I smile and get like goosebumps when I think about Ida B. Wells and her contribution to the longevity and the livability of Black lived
Mm,
experiences. Because had it not been for her revolutionary act that I'm going to tell this story, and you're not going to stop me from writing this story,
mhm,
man, she was one of them kind of women, everybody got a big mama who would be like, look anybody in the face, walk down to the courthouse, and I'm gonna point my finger in your face and be like, look at here, you gonna do X, Y, and
uh-huh,
Z when it come to my babies. Or
uh-huh,
go up to that schoolhouse and be like, look at here, you ain't gonna treat mine this way. Ida was in that vein the voice of the community.
mhm,
So when these lynchings would happen, she simply wanted to document like the numbers of, and she went from state to state. She was ran out of a lot of places, but she didn't stop. She knew what her mission was. We have this little coin, this phrase, assignment understood, or did you understand the assignment? Today. Ida understood what her purpose
mm,
was. And so her assignment was very clear. And she said, I'm not going to allow anyone to stop me from making headway when it comes to narrating this story. And it's going to be documented in a way where they cannot deny it, because
mhm,
I'm naming time, place, and people. And I'm giving all the postcards, because white folks after the lynchings, like, we have to really and truly think about the diabolical nature of white folks who watched lynchings. They took pictures, turned them into postcards, sent them to their family members, and said, this is what we were doing on this day at this time. So
mhm,
she had supporting evidence as to these lynchings taking place.
mhm, mhm.
And there's no way that anyone can deny. She was ran out of the US for a little bit and was resided in Canada. But when I say a badass Black woman, Ida B. Wells. Yes.
Ida B. Wells, and at a time where it was very dangerous to speak out against what we were seeing, and we see today even. You, my wife, I know a lot of Black women who stand up for our rights,
Right.
who stand up in the face of racism and say, let's get it popping,
Yeah.
whatever you want to do. You see what I'm saying?
Right.
So that's the spirit of that woman. And we need to be able to acknowledge these individuals, and our kids and our little girls need to
Yes.
know how important it is, because it was very difficult for them to take this approach when there weren't even a lot of structures available to get
No.
this kind of information out, but they created it. So we honor that sister
Absolutely.
today. Now, the next one we're gonna honor, which a lot of Black folks I'm sure know about, but we need to talk about, are people and the women that was about this struggle. You know what I mean? So Madam C.J. Walker is another one who seen how our hair was being treated. She's seen how, there was Black folks who wanted to have hair like white women, and she's seen all the dynamics about hair in the Black community, and she did something about it. And one thing I like about this is that, yes, she created her own hair care products. She created like infrastructure on how to sell it and how to market it. Like, her business
Yes.
genius was immaculate, even for today. Like, if she was
Yeah.
alive today, I
Yeah.
think she could make $1 billion today. And she was
Again.
one of the first millionaires as a Black woman. There was one or two other ones, but she was one of the first millionaires as a Black woman, and her business acumen was bar none. But what I really liked about Madam CJ Walker, she was gangster.
She was.
Like, she would, she would strike a man if she needed to. You know what I
Right,
mean? Like
right. She
men,
was definitely
men
not
didn't
about it.
intimidate this woman. Like
Yeah,
if you see pictures of her and you read about her, like, okay, that picture that's like 100 years ago, damn near, but that picture makes sense because she was
absolutely.
with it then. See, so we need to be aware of that type of ingenuity, Sonia, when white folks is at your neck and you got
Yes,
the mindset to say, you know what? I'm gonna create this structure. I'm gonna get employees. I'm gonna have them going door to door.
yeah.
She created a great infrastructure, and I honor that sister.
Yes, absolutely. And again, I get goosebumps because, and we also have to talk about the fact that you got these dolls at a place where they are seeing the need for making sure that representation is available in the stores so that young Black girls can have access to these images and stories and these people.
Mhm,
But Madam CJ Walker, yes, one of our first Black millionaires,
mhm,
built a structure from the ground up, and she wasn't going to take any mess from anyone.
mm,
And if you've ever, they had a movie out about her a few years back, the Madam CJ Walker story, and it's ironic because in the story, the way that they tell the story is not as accurate as can be, but they tried to
mm,
pit her against another Black woman who was trying to make inroads in the same industry. And so I always say to us, there's enough room for all of us to excel
mm,
and be millionaires together and learn from each other. My greatest sense of joy as an entrepreneur is that I get other Black women. I'm camped around, circled around in support groups, and we call upon each other. That if I'm too busy, I'm calling on one of y'all to loosen up the slack for me. If I got a client that I can't handle and they're looking for a recommendation, I'm going to give that recommendation to another Black woman. And
mm,
so that's the only way that we can survive in this country.
mhm,
And I know that some people are like, oh, well, why does it have to be a Black person? Because historically, Black folks in this country have been left out of these conversations and left out of these opportunities. There wouldn't be programs today that allow for small Black women business owners. They are targeting us specifically because we are left out in a huge portion of government grants, small business loans when you go to get money to back your business, or just the sheer idea of getting a brick and mortar place for your business. It is 10 times harder to do that as a
mhm,
Black business owner, and I would venture to say probably 25 times higher if you're a Black woman. And
mhm,
so Madam CJ Walker really broke the glass ceiling when it comes to business and economics. She said, this is not a good old boy system. And I'm going to tell y'all, I'm getting my coins and I'm going to put them in the bank that I want to put them in. And you're not going to tell me that I can't have my money. She did an excellent job with building a business and managing money. So we can do it, it's the ingenuity. And I love that about us, because when our feet are put to the fire, we figure out how to get out that fire.
mhm. And she was very outspoken. But you mentioned something, and this happens a lot. That's why I'm happy you on the show. So that was that propaganda.
Yes.
I seen the movie, and now I'm thinking they did pit her against another Black woman who was trying to do the same thing. We have to be. This is why knowing history is important, because
Absolutely.
if you research it beforehand, get your own understanding of what happened, you will see the play where they do that a lot, where they try to create white saviors, they try to create division in the movie. They
Right.
say, it's based on a true story, but they'll do the little stuff. So what?
Yeah.
That's unnecessary at times, because if a person don't know her story, they may watch that movie and say, okay, this is exactly what happened.
Right. Right.
You see what I'm saying? So
Absolutely. And
RIP to that. No, go ahead.
and that's the beauty behind. I mean, I'm grateful that her story is out there, but we have to always be mindful that Hollywood is going to do what Hollywood does to
Yeah.
sell as and make as much money on our own on Black stories. Oh yeah,
Hmm.
they don't want to tell Black stories,
Hmm.
right? Someone is trying to, and I can't remember who, It might be Michael B. Jordan, who is trying to get the movie of
Mansa
Marcus
Musa.
Garvey.
Oh,
Mansa
Marcus
Musa,
Garvey.
Mansa
Mansa
Musa, but
Musa.
someone else is trying to get the story of Marcus Garvey
Ooh.
produced as well. And I'm super excited about both. But I'm also, as a history buff, it's like y'all got to tell these two, like if y'all add some propaganda and make it something that it ain't, I'm gonna be screaming from the rooftops like that didn't really happen.
Yeah.
And we have to be mindful of those things. But
Mhm.
I am always happy to lend my voice to what we do as a people and just celebrate the things because it is the ingenuity. And
Mhm.
and just for the sake of this being Black History Month, I wanted to share that we wouldn't be able to do and have some things in this world had it not been for the following things. Everything about your phone came from a Dr. Shirley Jackson,
Mm.
who invented. She was a doctorate at MIT. The portable heater was invented by a woman named Alice Parker.
Hmm.
The space saving furniture, the design of making duality out of furniture, came from a Black woman, Sarah Good, out of Chicago. Home security system, like peep this, Marie Van Brittan Brown out of New York invented the home security system. Rock
Man.
and roll. They say, there's the father of rock and roll, but they're Chuck Berry, but they're saying that Sister Rosetta Tharpe, back in the 30s and 40s, is the mother of rock and roll.
Mm.
The hairbrush invented by Lydia Newman. I always, this is one of my favorite Black women because she was came to California, and it's different when we talk about enslavement and who was a part of that sister system. But Bridget Biddy Mason helped find the city of Los Angeles and
Know that.
built schools. I love Miss Biddy. One other person, because we know that when it comes to healthcare and women's health in particular, it is highly taken care of by men, white men in particular. But Mary Beatrice Davidson Kenner developed the menstrual pad. Um,
Mm.
Yes, exactly. 3D movies, you wouldn't be able to go to 3D movies if it weren't for Valerie Thompson. And the last one, to have better eyesight. And this is an article that I just looked up. Dr. Patricia Bath invented a device that drastically improved the process for removing cataracts. And this is an article that I found, 10 Black women innovators and the awesome things that they brought us and we can't live without. So I
Mm.
wanted to share that, and I'll look up, continue to look up, make sure that we have some good stuff to think about when we have these conversations. But again, we cannot ignore we can't ignore. Oh, I got an alarm. There we go. Um, a Madam C.J. Walker or an Ida B. Wells, because their contributions were so invaluable to
Hmm.
our existence.
And I think some, like for Black men, men in general, but especially our men, like you should love on your Black woman, man. Your mama, your cousin, your actual woman. Like the strength that they display in 2023 in the face of racism, in the face of the war on drugs and welfare and all these systems that have been set up to make us fail, we still got women who holding it down.
Yeah.
And this ain't I think this all goes together. Like what you guys come from, what you've had, to the first person on
Yeah.
earth. Like everything comes from the
Everything
woman.
comes from a Black woman.
You see, and because everything comes from a woman, but nah, everything actually comes from a Black woman, y'all. This
Yeah.
everything that we sitting on today. So the strength that's displayed by our women, I'm never surprised about it. And this is why, as men, we need to hold our women up. And we say this type of thing a lot, and there's a lot of men who do.
Yeah.
Like all Black men aren't hella disrespectful to their
Yeah.
woman or whatever, but we need to be aware of the contributions of our women, contributions of all of us
Yeah.
in the country we live in and just abroad. In this, because we didn't have much, excuse me, we begin to create at a rate
Yeah.
that's unmatched by any other group of people because we had to. Now let's
Because
keep it
we
real.
had
Like
to.
we didn't have like a whole bunch of shit. You're like, I'm gonna go
Right.
ahead and create a toaster because I got to. No,
Right. No.
I didn't have nothing to use. So give me some sticks and some stems and
Yeah.
some You know what I mean? That's what we've
Yeah.
been doing since we've been here. So
Yeah.
we need to respect our black folks and especially our black women. So this is your brother Harrison, the Melanated Convo podcast, man. Happy to be back. Me and my sister Sonia Williams Lewis back for another episode. Thank you everybody for tuning in, man. Hit the like button, the subscribe button. Do everything you can to support the show. Sonia, tell everybody where they can find you.
You can find me. Come and check out my website, Ascribe, ASCRIBE, success.com. And I want to put out a challenge to Black men in general. It is Women's History Month, but I would say this: there's a challenge going around on TikTok right now. A couple of months ago, there was the Black Women's Train Challenge, because they were taking our ideas, and you would only see white contenters on TikTok. Now you're able to see a plethora of. So there's a challenge for Black men on TikTok about how much do you love a Black woman. And so I'm seeing all of these beautiful videos, and I'm just like, wow. Let them tell it. Black men don't like Black women. Like, let them tell the narrative. That's one of those dividing positionings that has been an attack mechanism on our community. Let them tell it. But I know I got a daddy who loved me to hell to death, right? I got a husband, I got sons, I got uncles and cousins, and we gonna do the thing. But we got to tell the world that we love each other.
Yes. So thank you everybody for tuning in to another episode of the show. Go to the Melanated Convo podcast or the Melanated Convo 100 on Instagram. My Facebook page is Harrison Anderson. That's where you can find the show too. Yeah, man. Thank you guys for tuning in and continue to supporting us. The numbers are going up, and this is what we love to do, man. Everybody can, all of us, everybody in our community isn't really genuinely concerned about all of our struggles, and I understand that. You could have may not known about our history. You may have grown up in a house where it wasn't there. Well, a whole bunch of reasons, and I'm empathetic to that. But this is why we're here, man.
Yeah.
This is why we're here, to create love for our people and love for our community, and it can't stop. And the unity piece, which we speak about ad nauseum, this is important, because if we came together, can't nobody stop us, and they know that. If we can build all these great inventions in slavery, imagine what we can do if we all put our head together now. You feel me?
Absolutely.
So this is your brother Harrison, Melanated Convo podcast. Thank you guys for tuning in to another episode. We out.